It's Miss Talhami. Today we are going to be able to recognize when two triangles are congruent and state which method would prove them congruent. So in order to do so, we want to know what it means. What does it mean for two triangles to be congruent? So we've mentioned this before. We said that means they are the same shape and the same size. So everything about them is the same. Now, more importantly, when you're looking at these two triangles, for example, if they're the same shape and size, that means all their corresponding parts are also congruent. So that means any part, like if I took this triangle right here and I actually drag it over here, that means at this corner where I had the angle A is congruent to the angle D. So it's important for you to note that. So angle A to angle D, angle B to angle E, angle C to angle F. Even the sides, side line segment AB should be the same length of DE, and BC to EF, and AC to DF. So notice I use the same markings for the correct corresponding parts. So that's what it means to be congruent. Everything about them is the same shape and same size. So now if you take a look here, this statement tells you, hey, triangle AEB is congruent to triangle CDB. Now, they did not have to give you a picture as much as you think they might have. If you just look at the statement, A would correspond with C because they're both the first letters, E with D, and B with B. So if I were to do those colors so that you could see them, A corresponds with C, E corresponds with D, and then B with B in both triangles. So now really this should, become so much easier to figure out what AE is congruent to. So AE is congruent to CD if I use the correct corresponding parts. EB to, if you want to pause it here and see if you can complete the rest of these blanks, go for it. So EB to DB, angle ABE and angle CBD, angle E and angle D, triangle EAB with triangle DCB, and triangle BAE with triangle BCD. So sometimes, using the picture can help, and I actually sometimes just use the statement if one is provided to me. So just looking at the statement would be enough to say, hey, AE is CD, EB is DB, ABE should be the same as CBD. So either one. I just wanted to let you know that you can use both if they're provided to you. If the picture is not provided, you could stick to the statement. If the statement's not provided, stick to the picture and the information they give you. So there are 5 methods to prove triangles congruent, so I'm hoping you remember them. The first one that most of you should remember is called side, side, side. But usually you don't write all of it out. You just write SSS. That means 3 sides of one triangle would be congruent to 3 sides of another. So here's what 3 sides marked would look like. That's what side, side, side would look like for both triangles. The next method is side, angle, side. So it looks something like this, where I have 2 sides, and notice how A is between the 2 S's. So if it's this side and this side, the angle should be here, where it's between, where both sides meet. So both sides meet at this angle in between them. So that's side, angle, side. The third method is angle, side, angle. So notice with this one, and we could just do, notice how I'm just abbreviating ASA. That is allowed. So that means I should have two angles congruent. So let's say I have these two angles. And then notice how it's side angle, side angle. That means if these are the two angles, then the side should be between them, touching both angles. So I'm going to actually mark that. So that's what angle, side angle looks like. Then you have angle, angle, side. So that would look like two angles and then a side not between it. So here's angle, angle, and then an example would be, hey, it cannot be this side because this is the one between them. So let's just say this side. So that's angle, angle, side. And no, you don't, I hope you remember that angle, side, side is not allowed. So that spells a bad word, ASS. So make sure you don't ever use that. And not because it spells a bad word, but because it's not enough information to prove that the triangles are congruent. And so the last method here is called hypotenuse leg. Now notice, every other method had 3 words. This last one only has 2. Now I'm going to make a big note here. All methods need 3 congruent parts. Now you're going to tell me, Ms. Talhami, number 5 only has 2 words. Now, whenever we use the word hypotenuse and leg, or this HL, what kind of triangle has a hypotenuse and a leg? It has to be a right triangle. So notice that's your 3rd piece of evidence. A hypotenuse, a leg, and a right triangle. So I don't have that word hypotenuse or leg unless it's a right triangle. So here's my right triangle. So I need the right angle, I need the hypotenuse, and one of the legs. So that's what hypotenuse legs look like. So that is your 5 methods to prove triangles congruent. Hopefully looking at this, you recognize them. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video here. Here are 5 pairs of triangles. So I'll cut them into separate groups if you'd like. So I want you to see what method would prove each one of these congruent of the 5 methods that I just gave you. So you might want to copy them down or check it out. But here are 5 methods. Okay, so hopefully if you pause the video, you'd now be able to see the answers. For the first pair of triangles, this is side, 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 because both triangles have 3 pairs of congruent sides. For the second one, I have a side, an angle, and a side. Now, some of you may have thought, hey, this is a right triangle, so it must be HL, but notice, the hypotenuse, which is opposite the 90-degree angle, is not marked. So this is not HL. But for this 3rd pair of triangles, it's a right triangle. Here's the hypotenuse. Here's a leg. So that's why it's HL. I have angle, side angle, where the side is touching both angles, so it's in between them. And then I have angle, angle, side, where this side is only touching one of the 2 angles. So that's the difference between angle, side angle and angle, angle, side. So hopefully you understand the 5 methods to prove triangles congruent. The one extra piece of information that I want you to know is that they don't always mark what's congruent. Sometimes they ask you to find a hidden part. So what I mean by a hidden part is there are 2 kinds of hidden parts. I'm going to label them for you. This is the first one. The first kind of hidden part is when you have vertical angles. And here's the second type of hidden part called a reflexive. So those you have to mark on your own if it's not already marked. So now you know what vertical angles are from our earlier unit. You know vertical angles are when you have intersecting lines and they're across of each other, and we already know that they are congruent. So we know that vertical angles are congruent. So now that gives us an extra piece in each triangle. Here's 1 piece here and 1 piece there. In total, I would need 3 here and 3 here so I could prove the triangles are congruent. So take a look at these two triangles. In this triangle, I only have an angle and a side. Same thing here, I have an angle and a side. It's not enough information. We said before, we need 3 congruent parts. Okay, so now if I mark these vertical angles, now look how I use a different marking. I use 2 arc marks instead of 1 because 1 is already used. Now I have 3 pieces marked. And is this a method? Angle, angle, side. Same thing here. I only have 2 pieces marked in each triangle. 1, 2. 1, 2. I need a 3rd piece of evidence. Here are my vertical angles. Now this is side, angle, side. And then if you take a look at this example in the second type of hidden part. So again, there's only 2 hidden parts. Vertical angles or reflexive. Otherwise, you can't just mark anything. A reflexive means they share it. Which means that if I split these 2 triangles, let me try and make this straight. If I split these 2 triangles, what you'll notice is that they both share a certain side. And some of you already know what a reflexive is, but I just want to go over it one more time. So let me take out triangle ABD. And maybe I'll make it a little smaller. And here's triangle BDC. So here you go. I've now separated the, I didn't mean to take that. I've now separated the 2 triangles. If you take a look at their sides and their angles, how much do they have in common? They both contain the letter B, and they both contain the letter D, which might mean that they both share, which you could tell here, this side BD. If I split these 2 triangles up, will this length change, or does it stay the same when I split the triangles up? These are the same length. They are shared. It's called a reflexive. So usually in the picture we put an X for reflexive. And that counts as a congruent side. Now there's also times when we might get a congruent angle, so you can mark those as well. You can mark it with a little X. So take a look at this picture. Here are 2 triangles. In this triangle here, I only have 1 angle here and 1 angle there. In this triangle here, I have 1 angle here and 1 angle there. Not enough information. But if you notice, both triangles share a side here, AC. So now it becomes angle, side, angle. Over here, in this last picture, now some of you might say, hey, I don't have enough information in either triangle because I have only 2 things here, but I only have 1 here. Keep in mind, 90-degree angles work on both sides. So actually now I have 2 parts in each triangle. But still, this is not enough information. I need 3 pieces of evidence. But these 2 triangles share this side, SD. So now if I look at the method, I have a side, and an angle. Hold on, wait, that's ASS. I'm not allowed to have ASS. So if it's a right triangle, and I have the hypotenuse, and I have a leg, that means this is HL, hypotenuse leg. All right, so there's some extra practice if you want to practice here. You may have to mark some reflexive or vertical angles. So if you want to pause the video real quick and come back and just, whenever you're done with this, you could see the answers. Okay, great. So hopefully you completed this section. And I want you to pause whenever you need to check the answers. Keep in mind, like for number 8, 9, and 10, you needed to mark the reflexive or the vertical angles wherever you saw them. So hopefully you understand how to recognize that 2 triangles are congruent. You need 3 pieces of evidence, and in those 3 pieces of evidence, you need to choose one of the 5 methods that prove them congruent. Have a great day, everybody.